Hello, my name is Arlene Hurston, and I am here at the studio of Lynn University on behalf of the Boca Raton Historical Society and Museum. The Historical Society and Museum, founded in 1972, is a nonprofit membership organization dedicated to preserving the past and to enrich the future. The Historical Society is building a legacy in our community by collecting and sharing our local history. My guest today is a remarkable man who is dedicated to serving our community. He served 5 terms as a city council member and 2 terms as mayor of the Boca Raton. Currently, he is a Palm Beach County Commissioner. He has been described by a constituent as being a fine human being, and you can see for yourself as we welcome Commissioner Steve Abrams. Welcome.
Thanks. Glad to be here, Arlene.
Well, you know, you're such an important part of Palm Beach County. It seems like everybody knows you with all the different positions that you've held. But so originally, where are you from?
I was actually born in Des Moines, Iowa, but I grew up in Philadelphia. My parents are originally from Philadelphia. Grew up in Philadelphia.
Okay, so everything I read say that you were born in Des Moines, Iowa. But you left when you were 3 months old.
Yes, I left when I was 3 months old and I haven't been back. But my father happened to be a resident at Des Moines General Hospital at the time. So I was born in Des Moines. So, I have Midwestern roots, I guess.
Right, okay, but grew up in Philadelphia. So do you have siblings?
Yep, I have brother, sister. I'm the oldest. And my mother is very proud of the fact that all 3 of us went to Harvard. So they're doing well, and even though I'm the oldest, they still talk to me.
And you're really doing well. But you have such an interesting family. So you mentioned your mother. Tell us a little bit about your mother, because I understand that she's the person that inspired you.
Well, I actually followed in the footsteps of my mother by having a career in politics. Usually you follow the footsteps of your father. I never had an interest in being a doctor, but my mom, for many years, worked for the city of Philadelphia, worked for the mayor in an office called the City Representative's Office. That office, which you have sometimes in very large cities, is an office where the folks in there represent the mayor at many different events throughout the community because, of course, the mayor of a big city can't be everywhere. So she did everything in her career from lead student tours of historic Philadelphia to the protocol for visiting dignitaries. When I was a little kid, I got to meet Golda Meir, got to meet U.S. senators, Supreme Court justices. So it was very exciting. Hung out at City Hall a lot because I did grow up in Center City, Philadelphia. And really that's what sparked my interest to the point where I always said I later became the city representative of Boca Raton.
Following in your mother's footsteps, So you mentioned following her when you were so young. Now, I happen to have a picture. I mean, we're used to you being at all of our ribbon cuttings and all of our openings. So I have a picture of you right here, of you with the current mayor of Boca Raton. No, I'm sorry, the current mayor.
He's with the current mayor of Boca Raton.
Exactly. The mayor of Philadelphia,
yes,
is with you, the future mayor of Boca Raton. So tell us about that day.
Right. That was a groundbreaking, or a dedication rather, at a playground in Philadelphia. I'm about 6 or 7 years old in that shot there with the then mayor of Philadelphia, James Tate. My mom is standing behind me. If you look closely, you can see I'm wearing plaid shorts, which probably destined my being the future mayor of Boca Raton at the time.
Okay, why do you say that? Why plaid shorts, the future mayor of Boca Raton?
You see a lot of plaid shorts in Boca,
Well, we see a lot of you in Boca, and that's for sure. You are so busy. So before we go on, your family is so interesting. Your parents divorced when you were younger.
Correct.
That's why your last name is Abrams, and your mother's last name is Ehrlich.
Right.
But she is married to your stepfather, who you say raised you, was a great man.
Yeah, I'm close with both of, all of my parents, I guess. But, my stepfather was, I grew up in his household, and he went to Harvard, and that was sort of my inspiration for following in his footsteps, even if I didn't become a doctor, to try to be a good student and eventually able to apply and be accepted to Harvard University.
Well, we're glad that you didn't become a doctor. We need you right here in Palm Beach County, but just your father, your stepfather, he barely escaped the Nazis during the Holocaust. Tell us a little bit about him.
Right, correct. He was born outside of Vienna, and when he was very young, probably the age of me in that picture in Philadelphia, 6, 7, 8 years old, he had to flee, as many Jews did, from Austria. And one day his mom said, dressed him in about 10 layers of clothing, and they scooted out of there, and she had bribed some Nazi officials and was able to procure some visas, and they ended up on the ship the Normandy, coming across the Atlantic to, I think their first stop was New York.
He and his family was certainly,
right, his brother and
one of
parents.
the lucky ones. You said something to me, earlier that's so important and I think so profound. You said the pessimist left and the optimist stayed.
Yeah, I mean it's an expression that I've heard, that the pessimists were the ones who felt that Hitler was going to take over, and they made plans to leave. The optimists among the Jews in Austria at that time were probably saying, this is just, this will go away, and we shouldn't take drastic measures. And of course, they were the ones who did not plan to leave, and unfortunately, in most cases, perished.
Exactly, and we have a lot of Holocaust survivors here who all have such interesting stories, and we're so proud of the fact that so many of them, including your stepfather, were able to really have substantial, meaningful lives in this country.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the promise of America.
Exactly, which is good.
Yeah.
And you're one of the promises right here.
Well, I count my blessings.
In Palm Beach County. But first, we mentioned your mother's influence on politics. So you went to Harvard, pretty good, graduated cum laude, but okay, I'm not going to say it right, high honors, from Harvard. And then you went to Washington, D.C. So I'm skipping over some, but
right.
I want to know how you decided that you were going to be a politically active person.
Well, as I said, growing up with my mom very involved in local government in Philadelphia, it was a natural for me to be interested in politics. I had volunteered on campaigns even as a young high school student, and so ended up in Washington working for the Republican Party and going to law school at the time in Washington. I met my wife, Debbie, there. She was Congressman Newt Gingrich's press secretary from Atlanta, and which is where Debbie is originally from. And so we thought, well, what would be a good compromise place to put down some stakes? And we picked South Florida. Debbie's grandmother actually lived down in Hollywood. It was warm for her. There were a lot of Yankees to keep me company. And so we ended up down here, and in Boca Raton in particular, because I had read an article at the time in the Washington Post travel section about Boca, saying that they were very progressive in buying up the beachfront for public use after seeing the condo being built up the coast, the condo canyon. And so I had purchased a lot of the beachfront. I thought, well, this sounds like a nice place to live. And coincidentally, a Philadelphia law firm, which I had close ties to, had a branch office here. And so that's how I ended up practicing law in Boca Raton.
Okay, well, I'm going to go back a little bit further. But speaking about the fact that you saw an article in a newspaper about Boca, were you aware there were articles in the newspaper in the 30s, 40s, 50s, maybe even going into the 60s, in the real estate section of newspapers, saying to people, come to Boca, beautiful beaches, beautiful homes, beautiful weather, and big letters, restricted, no Jews allowed.
Yeah, at the time, this would have been about the early 1980s. That was not a concern, but as you point out, I was not even aware of that until I moved down here about all the restrictions on Jews at the time. So it was certainly an eye opener.
Okay, we're going to talk about that because when you were running for office, but you skipped over some stuff. You know, all of a sudden, you know, here you are in Boca. But let's go back to Harvard because you mentioned you went to law school when you were in Washington. When you were in Washington, you also worked on campaigns. So did that, you know, were you happy working behind the scenes? Was that exciting for you? Did you say one day it's going to be me?
Well, a combination. Yes, politics had, as we discussed, had been in my blood. So I was very excited. I had managed a campaign actually right after I graduated in Spokane, Washington State of all places, but really loved it. And yes, eventually thought, well, you know, as exciting as it was to be behind the scenes, I wanted to actually be a candidate. You can't really run for office living in Washington, D.C. So that's why we looked at a place where we could move outside of the Beltway, outside of Washington, where I could take a stab at it.
Yeah, but you had exciting stuff going on in Washington.
Oh, yeah. No, I because during law school, I worked in the Reagan White House, in the White House counsel's office. And the way the office is set up, you have the counsel to the president, who was a man named Fred Fielding, and he had about 5 associate counsels, one of whom was John Roberts, who is currently, of course, the Chief Justice of the United States. So he was one of the lawyers that I worked under as a law clerk in the White House counsel's office, which meant that years later, when he became Chief Justice, I could brag that, as many law students and lawyers would love to do, that I was the law clerk for the Chief Justice of the United States. Now, of course, he wasn't Chief Justice of the United States when I was his law clerk, and I make that clear,
Yeah.
but still it's fun to be able to say that.
Well, you've both come a long way since
Well,
then.
gee.
Okay, one other person you worked for, before we get to what you've done as a candidate, you worked for Arlen Specter.
Well, I didn't really work for him, but he was one of the politicians in Philadelphia growing up who I volunteered for at a very young age. He started out in local politics in Philadelphia in the 60s, first as district attorney of Philadelphia. And so, you know, one of the candidates that I was able to volunteer for when I was a little kid.
Okay, so he had a slogan.
He did.
Which you said you even used when you came here. So tell us what that slogan.
I did. His slogan at the time was, he's younger, he's tougher, and nobody owns him.
Okay, so how do you feel about that today?
Well, other than I'm not younger anymore, I hope that I still I still am holding up the other attributes as an elected official.
Yeah, but tough in a nice way.
Right,
you know?
yes.
Because I don't know anybody that doesn't admire and say good things about Steve
Well, it's
Abrams.
tough. It's not
Yeah.
rude, so
Right,
you don't want
right.
to be rude.
Okay, so you met Debbie. You mentioned she worked for Newt Gingrich.
Correct.
So how did you meet? What was happening?
Well, at the time I mentioned I was working in Republican politics in Washington for the National Republican Congressional Committee, which Newt was involved with, and in fact was speaking at an event that the NRCC was holding for candidates, and she was tagging along as his press secretary, and I was sitting in the back of the room to hear the presentation, and that's how we met.
Okay, and you came to Florida together.
Correct.
And we're glad you came to Florida. So you came to Boca Raton, bought a house on the east side of Boca Raton, and then you stepped right in to the community. In, I think, 1987, you were on the Planning Commission. You were involved in the development of Meisner Park. How did you kind of get in so young?
Well, I mean, that was one of the great things about Boca Raton, because people in Boca had come from all over the country and really all over the world. And so there was not some sort of hierarchy or structure, of generations that you had to sort of pay your dues with. You could, if you were inclined to be involved, participate right away. And that's been always, I think, a good quality of Boca Raton, that people who are active and interested can get involved right away in their area of interest. And mine was politics. I was practicing law, as I mentioned, at the now Bank of America building, which is the skyscraper, the 8-story building off of Palmetto and Powerline. And our office was on the 7th floor. I looked out over the intersection of Powerline and Palmetto, which actually only until recently, now there's a Hyatt Hotel being constructed there, but it was a vacant lot. The only productive economic use of that lot was at Christmas time, when they were selling trees, maybe Halloween too, with some pumpkins. And I had grown up in Center City, Philadelphia, and was used to a more vibrant downtown, wanted to see that happen, as did others in the community who were pushing for downtown redevelopment, in particular at that time in the late 80s, approval of Meisner Park. And so joined their efforts, got involved, was the treasurer of the political committee that was promoting Meisner Park, which was approved by the public in a referendum in 1989.
Wow, okay. And you became very active in the local Republican Party. So then you decided, okay, I'm active, I'm behind the scenes, I know what's going on. Now, in your 20s still, you decide to run for city council?
Well, I felt confident because I had a good grasp of local issues, both in downtown, as we talked about, also as a member of the Planning and Zoning Board, had city issues citywide come before us. At that time, in fact, the city was writing its comprehensive plan. So really had a good understanding of all of the aspects of Boca, and so a vacancy occurred on the city council, and I felt I was ready to throw my hat in the ring.
Interesting. So how old were you?
I was probably 29. I was elected when I was 30.
Oh, well, at least.
So I had my birthday in December.
Okay, so let's get back to campaigning. First time now you're the candidate, but you're living in Boca Raton, and you're the Jewish candidate. There had never been a Jewish member on the city council, an elected official. What was that like for you?
Well, I tried not to think about it, and tried to, emphasize my knowledge of the issues and hope that the electorate would evaluate the candidates based on the issues, which eventually they did. There were, though, friends of mine who had been active, very active in local politics, who did warn me that there had never been a successful Jewish candidate before. A couple had run and not been successful, and that I might want to be aware of that before I stepped into the ring. So I had it in the back of my head, but really I thought through my interaction in the community that the public here was interested in candidates who would have effective solutions for the challenges that the city faced, would have a good understanding of what the issues were, and would vote accordingly. And so I'm sure, I didn't win unanimously, so I'm sure there might have been some who didn't, approach an election like that, but I was fortunate that most did.
Okay, well, you say you didn't win unanimously. In future elections, many times it was a landslide, many times unopposed, many times, you really proved yourself in being such a positive thinker. But it wasn't always positive. there were times when you and Debbie, who was so involved in your campaign, you were young, you had these flyers, you would hand them out, you would pick the flyers up again because you want to save money. So tell us about that.
Well, you did get some interesting feedback that way. You know, my first campaign, we ran on a shoestring budget, so I'd go to an event, put flyers out at the tables, and then have make my speech, or there'd be a candidate forum, and then stick around and pick up the flyers afterwards so we could reuse them at a later event. And yeah, people would scribble some things on the flyers that were pretty distasteful.
Well, we say some things. You know, we're here. Tell us what those some things
Yeah, I mean,
were.
you know, there was one, we would say Jew on it, you know, above the picture, my picture, a swastika, but, you know, one or two of them, not,
Okay.
you know,
So
a great
personally,
number of
did
them.
you ever experience any anti-Semitism aside from those?
Yeah, I mean, that's
flyers?
that's anti-Semitism. It's behind your back. It's very rarely to your face. And if it is, it's out of ignorance more than anything else. You know, during my stint as an elected official, I'd get comments that Jews would consider to be, and I certainly consider to be, anti-Semitic comments, but as we know, so many of them are just out of sheer ignorance. And, you know, that's what I would encounter once in a while.
Okay, but anyway, you proved to people you were a substantial person you were. People were voting for you because of you.
Right, and of course when I got elected, then I was able to have a track record in office, and people could evaluate that.
But the only Jewish person on the Jewish Council, when you became mayor, the only Jewish mayor ever, even to this day, ever to serve as mayor of Boca Raton.
And actually throughout the county, it turned out I became the first Jewish president of the Palm Beach County League of Cities. So throughout the entirety of Palm Beach County, on the municipal level, there really had not been a lot of Jewish elected officials.
Wow, and you are certainly a person to be proud of. But we mentioned Debbie, your wife, who is so active in our community. She was so helpful on your campaign, but she, in her own right, is a prominent citizen here in Boca Raton. She was the first Jewish president of the Junior League here in Boca Raton. She won the award for Volunteer of the Year at the very substantial, big, important luncheon for the Junior League at the Boca Hotel. I happened to be sitting at her table. I was so thrilled.
She was as surprised as you were.
No, I wasn't surprised.
Oh.
I was happy. But, you know, she's now vice president of the Buzz Agency, which is a dynamic public relations firm here in Boca Raton. So she has had an influence on you, and she has had influence here. So would you consider yourselves, what they say in Washington, a power couple?
Well, I don't know about that in the sense that, you know, we're not plotting and scheming to accumulate a lot of power, but we're, as you mentioned, both very involved in the community, and, you know, have had the privilege really to help shape the future of the community, in my case in politics, in her case in the not-for-profit sector, which ultimately work hand in glove in Boca Raton, really, to advance the quality of life in our city.
True. Okay, so you've been such a powerful influence here. So let's talk about what you've done. You've done so much. So you were on the city council for 5 terms.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you became mayor for 2 terms, re-elected unanimously. Sometimes you got more votes than anybody else in the history of Boca Raton. And when you were mayor, there were a lot of things that happened. Primarily, I guess, you know, we have to say one of the most worldwide things that happened, you were just recently elected mayor, and we had the anthrax problem here. So you were on national television. What was that like for you during that time?
Well, those were interesting times. We had had, of course, 9/11, and then a month later, the anthrax attack here in Boca Raton. I'd just been elected a few months earlier, so not in my playbook when I was running for mayor, but yet really I had put all the skills that I had accumulated and the contacts that I had made up to that point to use. So I could rely on that to get us through that very terrible period of time. At the time, the national networks were focused on the former AMI building, which was the site where the anthrax attack occurred, with all of our public safety personnel, police and fire outside, cordoned off, with the dateline Boca Raton, Florida. So it was very devastating for our image in the country, in the world. First, of course, though, we had to ensure that the building was secure, that our residents were safe, and because we had very well-trained fire and police personnel, we were able to do that. Then, beyond that, to reassure the public, but also have to sort of turn our image around. We rely so much on tourism. Our hotels were taking a huge hit, and turn it around, and we were able to do that. And I'm glad everyone in the community pulled together.
Okay, so I just want to read just a little quote about how you handled that nationally, what people thought about you. So, it says, with the world watching, that Mayor Abrams spoke with cautious but confident tone and manner. He chose not to use the limelight for grandstanding and self-prophecy, but instead to share a well-coordinated responsibility with the authorities and participate in a very important role in a national emergency. So you mentioned 9/11. So suddenly people were saying, you handled yourself so well, but you made Boca proud, and then they gave you a nickname of the Rudy Giuliani of the tropics. So how did you feel about that?
Well, Mayor Giuliani had handled himself so well and got so much of a similar type of acclaim that, I was very flattered by it. And later, actually, funny how history just comes together. After he left office as mayor, he was involved in a company that cleaned up contaminated sites. His company actually decontaminated the AMI site. We did a press conference together at the site. So it all came together full circle that I was standing there on the stage as the Rudy Giuliani of the tropics, as the newspapers proclaim me, with the Rudy Giuliani of the United States.
Wow, and you certainly made us very proud. So you were mayor for 2 terms. You were term limited. Otherwise, I think you could have been mayor forever. Maybe, it was, a great accomplishment. 3 hurricanes during the time that you were mayor. But the time has come. You were term limited. You had to leave. What was that like for you?
Well, I think they had to go bring in the jaws of life from our fire rescue department to extract me from office. I did enjoy serving so much, but we do have term limits, and I was fortunate that the city had elected my friend Susan Welchel as my successor, so I knew that there'd be a very smooth transition, that she would do a great job. So, I was able to leave with a good legacy in place that I knew would be advanced over the coming years.
And when she became mayor and you had to install her as mayor or make the speech, you were so gracious and so lovely, and it was, I was there, and I was proud of you. And she, of course, was a great mayor. Susan Welchel is terrific.
Of course, she had the recession, which she always kids me about. I was mayor during an economic boom, and she'll kid me that I left her with a national recession that she had to dig out of. But she did a great job. We had a lot of companies locate to Boca during her tenure, and she was really able to lift us up from those bad economic times.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So, there was a they rate your performance when you're mayor, and so I found one of these articles where, for your period of 2001, 2008, being mayor. So let me tell you some of the things they said, and how you react to it. Okay. So Stephen Abrams, character. They said uncompromising.
I think you must have talked to my mother.
Okay. What do they mean by that?
Well, it probably goes back to the Arlen Specter slogan of younger, tougher, and nobody owns them. I was able to listen to all points of view, mediate among conflicting interests, which we often have when there's a controversial issue before the council, and come up with common ground solutions to address the issue. And that's how I've always felt is my role as an elected official.
Good. And then they said competency. Did I say that right?
Competency?
Got
There
it.
you go.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioner. They said stellar. So what did they mean by that?
Well, I think, again, I had a lot of experience at different levels of government, and certainly had been immersed by the time I became mayor in city politics and city issues. So a good grasp of the issues that confronted the city.
Okay, and your contribution, they said, impressive. So I agree.
Oh.
I'm still impressed. We're all impressed. So you don't have to react to that.
Okay.
So, and then, of course, your biggest and most important accomplishment, they had mentioned, was anthrax, and how you handle that with such dignity and as I said, made us all proud of you. Still proud of you. So, you've also been voted at several times as the best city official each year since 2002 by the Boca Raton Times newspaper. So, as much as hard you work, when you feel that you're appreciated, so that must make you feel that it's all worth it.
That's a very good way of putting it. Yes, one of the positives of our community is that we have so many involved citizens. We have a well-educated population, and so it's really more the task on my part is getting everybody to sort of row in the same direction. But I have a lot of willing rowers. As we mentioned, the not-for-profits in Boca Raton are phenomenal. I mean, what our not-for-profits do, and in many cases, whatever the issue is, it's something that normally would end up on the doorstep of City Hall in any other city. Where they might not have the strong not-for-profit organizations, and for that matter, the private sector, which also contributes so much to the vitality of the community. Without a strong private sector and not-for-profit sector, the problems that a city faces would end up on the doorstep of City Hall. So, that's why you have to rely on a team effort if you're going to sustain a good quality of life in your city.
Yeah, and you're so right. I'm involved in so many things in this city that are nonprofit, and I've met so many of our elected officials. People really care here in Boca Raton and Palm Beach counties. So now you, who have been such a popular mayor, you're term limited. Oh my God.
There is life after politics.
Well, no, but however, short period of time, I don't know exactly, how long was it before there became an opening on our county commission?
A year.
Oh, 1
So
year.
I was able to survive the
You
year.
managed a year of not being in politics. So first you were appointed to a county commissioner, and then you were elected unopposed, which was very gratifying. And then there was a term, so you're a county commissioner. We're all familiar with that term. And then all of a sudden, you became the mayor of Palm Beach County. Mayor again. So that was a little confusing. Explain.
Well, we had always had a chairman of the Board of County Commissioners that ran our meetings and was the figurehead of the county. However, to the south of us, that person in Broward County is known as the mayor of Broward County. There's a mayor of Miami-Dade County. There's even a mayor of Monroe County down in the Keys. We work together, the four counties in the southern part of the state, which, by the way, are the top 3 most populous counties of the state of Florida, on so many issues together. And I think we were playing second fiddle in so many ways to the mayors of Broward County and the mayor of Miami-Dade County. So that was one reason that the board changed the designation. Another was that you'd have presidents and CEOs of companies coming to Palm Beach County, and they have in their minds wanting to do business with the mayor. They're asking, well, where's the mayor? All of a sudden, the mayor of West Palm Beach would appear as the mayor of West Palm Beach to be that figurehead, when in fact we have 38 municipalities in Palm Beach County, and we're trying to attract business. And so I think that was greater visibility in that position to when we were going to attract businesses to our community, in particular to so many businesses come to South County. So for those reasons and others, that really it has been my experience that the public sort of understands the position of mayor and the role of a mayor as opposed to what a chairman does, and because the other counties similarly situated had mayors, the Board of County Commissioners decided to change that name, and I think it's paid off in those respects.
Really interesting, because to me, commissioner, I call you Commissioner Abrams as opposed to Mayor Abrams.
Well, we rotate the position, so there is
right.
now a mayor of Palm Beach County.
Right. So in other words, it's a one-year term,
Correct.
And each member of the commission becomes the mayor, and then they just become an ordinary commissioner.
Right.
Is there other than the title? Is there something?
Well,
that
for
goes
that
along
year
with that?
in office as mayor, that they're going to be the figurehead for the county, and they're going to raise the visibility of the county to the CEOs and others in the community, and they have that opportunity to do that, and I think that it has achieved that purpose.
Yeah, good. Okay, well, we're
Right.
happy you're commissioner, whether we call you mayor, commissioner, or just Steven.
Yeah, right. I only make my kids call me commissioner.
Okay, speaking about
They
kids.
don't do it, by the way.
All right, speaking about kids, because I want to also ask you about them. So tell us about the family you have here in Boca.
Yeah, well, Debbie and I, of course, are very proud of our children. So we have a daughter and a son. We're about 90% empty nester. Our son, who's the youngest, is a senior at University of Miami. So
His name?
Arthur.
Right.
And he's an environmental science and policy major, so we're anxious to see what he's going to do next year, but we have some irons in the fire. And our daughter Margaret, she has a very interesting life. She lives in New York and is a writer. For our viewers who may have seen the series Sex and the City, she has the exact job that Carrie Bradshaw had in Sex and the City. She's the style and relationships writer for the New York Observer.
Wow.
And the creator of Sex and the City, Candace Bushnell, was the style and relationships writer for the New York Observer, and then gave that position to Carrie Bradshaw, which is the character played by Sarah Jessica Parker in the show. So that's what she does in New York. She's having a blast.
And your face is lighting up
Right.
talking about her.
She's a very funny writer. That's why I light up, because I start recalling the things she's written. She's a very clever writer. And,
Tell me her name.
Margaret.
Margaret. Okay, but Margaret was also involved in the community. I remember going to a fundraiser for a real important issue that she was involved in.
Well, she takes after her mother in her desire to be involved in the community. In fact, now in New York, she's attending junior league meetings, so that she'll become a member of the Junior League of New York. So she's really following in her footsteps, and also very interested in being involved.
And your son was also an intern for the Boca Raton Historical Society.
Yes, that's true. Arthur is a great Florida history buff, among other things, and has been involved in the Historical Society, has actually decoded all of the Frank Cheeseborough diaries. He's one of our very early pioneers who wrote daily diaries on very small tablets and handwriting that Arthur was able to transcribe and really be able to reveal the incredibly interesting accounts of this man who was an early pioneer who farmed hundreds of acres here in Boca Raton. And then he actually lectured on it at an historical society event.
Wow, what a family. Now, I have seen your schedule for, as commissioner, also when you were mayor of Boca Raton, an incredible amount of events all the time, 50, 75 a month, maybe more. How do you handle that?
Well, you find, especially as mayor, but also as a commissioner with even a larger area that I represent, that you belong to everyone. So that means that you get invited to a lot of things, and you're very anxious to be supportive of all of the different events that are going on in the community. So you run around doing that. Then, of course, just the bread and butter of the job of having to meet with constituents, of doing press interviews, of meeting with other elected officials on the state and federal levels, as well as now as a commissioner, the fact that I have 12 municipalities in my district. So I try to maintain very close relationships with the elected officials in my 12 municipalities. And so all of that, plus the meeting schedule that we have. I mean, one of the interesting things about being a county commissioner as opposed to being at the city level is that because we are such a large county, third largest county in Florida, which means now, by the way, we are the third largest county in the third largest state in the country, and geographically the largest county east of the Mississippi. So there is a lot of territory to cover and a lot of issues to cover. So whereas we would have at the city level conduct all of our business at a workshop meeting and then a city council meeting twice a month, at the county level, we'll have a separate meeting just for ordinances, a separate meeting for zoning, a separate meeting for planning, a separate meeting sitting as the solid waste authority to deal with trash issues. Then each commissioner is involved on any number of other boards. So in my case, I am very active and former chairman of the South Florida Regional Transportation Authority, which operates Tri-Rail, and have a number of other commitments, chairman of the Value Adjustment Board. So just in terms of the number of meetings that a commissioner has on a daily basis is very time consuming.
Wow. Okay.
Said all that in
and
one
several
breath.
nonprofit boards as well. So when do you have the time and how do you relax?
Well, what's nice is that as opposed to being in Tallahassee or in Washington, D.C., I am local. So I'm able to sleep in my own bed every night, even if I am running around all over the place. That's a great added benefit. And when the kids were younger, I used to take them along to so many of the different activities and events that I would go to during the weekend. So, you're able to find time to be with your family.
Okay, so is that how you relax?
Oh, how I relax?
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't. I'm not really sure I ever relax.
I totally understand that. Absolutely. So,
But I'm having a good time doing what I'm
Yeah.
doing, so I guess that's not relaxation, but it certainly takes the stress off a lot of it.
so just for fun, you collect elephants.
Well, actually, people give me elephants, so I've developed a collection as a result of that. Of course, I'm a Republican, so the elephant is the symbol of the Republican Party, and people like giving me elephants. So as a result, I've accumulated a whole bunch of elephants.
So, you've done so much. You are doing so much. You hold elective office. What next? Do you ever think about national politics?
I do. Unfortunately, we're in a position here in South County where the options are a little more limited than they used to be. The two-party system is really in decline, where you have a lot fewer Republicans, but also fewer Democrats, for that matter. But unfortunately, the Republicans started out at a lower number, so that's dwindling. So fewer competitive seats as between Democrats and Republicans, but also, unfortunately, we now in Boca Raton and South County have been the subject of decisions by the Florida Supreme Court to turn our two congressional seats around from being north-south seats, one east of I-95, one west of 95, which I think, whether we're represented by a Democrat or a Republican, and we've been represented over the years by both, have been districts that make a lot of sense as far as the issues that we deal with here in South Florida. To have north-south districts, of course, our transportation system, I-95, the turnpike run north-south, the beaches run north-south. But unfortunately, due to litigation, the Florida Supreme Court drew the lines. They doesn't seem to be as knowledgeable about what the issues are in South Florida, because they actually flipped the seats so that we have two east-west districts now, one of which is in North Broward County with a little chimney that's the city of Boca Raton. So not only are we no longer north-south districts, but Boca has been thrust into a Broward County district. So forgetting the party politics, and certainly forgetting my any interest that I would hold, I just don't think it's good policy.
Yeah, right. But we're talking about interests that you hold. So, as a county commissioner, are you term limited with that too?
Yes. So my last term as a county commissioner.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we know that there's got to be something statewide. We know. Hey, there's got to be something in the future. We're not
sure
gonna
there
let
is.
you
I've
go.
about 3 years left, so
Yeah, good.
I don't have to figure that out right this moment.
So we know. So it's obviously you love what you do, and people here really are so pleased that you're giving so much of your service. In my introduction, I used a quote from one of your constituents who said that you are a fine human being. And she said, you always have time to say hello and ask how people are and make them feel important. And she added, this particular one, you are such a nice man. This was quoted in one of the newspapers, but, I certainly am. And I agree with her, and I'm just so happy you took the time from your busy schedule, really busy. Hope you relaxed a little bit here.
No, well, it's been I know the series that you're doing interviews for, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what all of the other participants have had to say about going down memory lane here in our area. It's something that I'm really glad is being preserved by you and by the Historical Society.
Right. Well, the Historical Society has made it. This is just one of the projects of documenting the Jewish history of Boca Raton. And you being such a prominent politician and Jewish representative, we're just so happy you're here. And I thank you so much for being here
You're
today.
welcome.
Thank you. So I want to thank the Boca Raton Historical Society for this really, really important venture. And of course, the staff at Lynn University and Lynn University for the use of their great TV studio. And I thank you all for being here. So thank you. Bye.